either I'm stuck or the car broke down? What are the kinds of things that would enable me to get the car back on the road? Because if I can get the car back on the road, I'm probably not going to need all this stuff.
The Ready Life, into the country.
Hi, I'm Nick Meisner, and I want to welcome you back to the Ready Life podcast, where you'll learn how to become as independent as possible for basic necessities like water, heat, food, and the power that we so often depend on for these things. In this episode, we're going to take a little bit of a turn and look at something that's often forgotten when we're thinking about being ready, prepared, that sort of thing. And that's what about when you're in your car. That's actually a time when you're pretty vulnerable, a lot more vulnerable than when you're at home. And so what do you need to have in your car in order to be prepared for whatever might happen? Whether it's the car breaking down, an accident, getting stuck, or who knows what, and especially like on a trip or something. So we're just going to take a quick spin in our car and show you what are the things that we commonly have. We've had to kind of strike a balance here because on one side, a lot of folks like to keep their car sparkling clean of stuff. They don't want any stuff in their car, and so their car is like completely bare. On the other hand, you could go to the other extreme and just pack the car full of gear, and you wouldn't have room to live or haul stuff or whatever. So, we've had to kind of strike a balance and find what is the amount of stuff that we can consistently have in the car and live a normal life and yet be more prepared. You get the idea. So to start off with, I'm going to kind of beat an old drum of ours, and that is basic necessities of life. Water, heat, and food. So water, what do we have for water? Well, we like to keep water on hand. Do you know how many people drive around without hardly any water in their car? And so wherever we go pretty much, we've got this gallon jug, and then, I don't have it up here, but we have our personal water bottles, which if we were to total all of them up, that'd probably be another gallon. So we've got roughly 2 gallons of water in the car pretty much all the time. And so that's a good start on the water. Also, I have down in here, a little life straw. Now, I've got better water filters than this, but I don't really like equipment that's a little bit more sensitive. I don't like keeping it in the car all the time because the car is a tough environment for things. And it gets super hot in here in the summer, super cold in the winter, and it gets jostled around and stuff banging up against it and everything. And this is very inexpensive, and it'll do the job in an emergency. So that's why that's in there. So that's our water. And then as far as food, we try and keep some food in here, like it could be in the form of granola bars or nut bars or something like that if you want, or whatever. Something that's going to keep for a long time. Dried fruit, something that's going to do well in the heat and in the summertime and in the cold in the winter and all of that. Just to have some food on hand. I mean, if nothing else, you could get stuck in the winter and be having to shovel yourself out. And if you haven't eaten in a while, you can bonk out and, low blood sugar or whatever. And it's good to have some food on hand. Or if you're, for whatever reason, just to be prepared. So that's water and food. And then as far as heat, I don't have a sleeping bag in here right now, but if you were to look at our car in the wintertime, we will typically have at least 1 or 2 really warm sleeping bags in the car pretty much all the time, unless we're making a special trip where we're going to be where we need extra space. But most of the time we do for warmth. And then also like military wool blankets like this. I love these. They're so inexpensive and they're tough as nails and they're warm, and you can just throw them in the washing machine and wash them, and they're just great for throwing in here, and in a pinch they could give you some good warmth, and they stay they retain a good bit of warmth even when they're wet. So those are the basic necessities squared away. Also, I forgot to mention clothing. In the wintertime, we will pretty much, when we go anywhere, make sure that everybody's got their really warm jackets and snow pants or equivalent, and hats and gloves and warm boots on. And you try and think through what would I want to have here in the car with me if I broke down, because we've got a long stretch of really remote road between us and town. So if we go anywhere, we're going through a long stretch where there's no cell reception, it's remote, and if it's cold out, you want to, if you go off the road, you get stuck, break down, whatever, you want to have what you would need to make it in order to hike to the nearest house or make it overnight or whatever. So that's kind of the general idea with the stuff that we have in the car. So then beyond the basic necessities, a good first aid kit. This is our favorite one. We take the Outfitter by AMP3, the Pruitts. They make the best first aid kits, I think. And we take this thing pretty much wherever we go. In the car, if we go on a camping trip, whatever. It's really complete. You can modify it however you want. Like, for instance, something that wasn't in here that I wanted to have in here was some liquid Benadryl, because if you've got kids that have trouble swallowing pills, or even animals, and they get a bee sting, they react to a bee sting or something like that, Benadryl is going to be really helpful and important in that kind of a situation. So that's just one example of a modification that I made. You could tuck some charcoal in here. That would be a great idea. Different things like that you might use that would be out of the norm. Another modification that I made that I really like having with me is an old pulse oximeter of ours. And, it just makes it really easy to, if somebody's in distress or you come upon an accident by the side of the road or whatever, it's completely non-invasive. You can just slip it on the finger and keep track almost instantly of their pulse and their oxygen levels, SpO2 levels. So that's something that I really like having. And those are pretty readily available these days. So having a good first aid kit is really, really important. I mean, I don't know about you, but in my lifetime, I have come upon a number of car accidents. Now, only one or two of them have been a situation where my help was required, but you never know when you're going to be needed to help. And so the bag isn't only for dealing with stuff for you, but it's also, helping somebody else out who's in a bad situation. And if you're helping them, you've got PPE in there, gloves and stuff like that, so that you aren't hopefully picking up diseases and things like that. Other stuff. So beyond basic necessities and medical, I'm also thinking about what do I need to have, what's going to be the highest value items that will help me to get the car back on the road. Because in all likelihood, the reason why I would need almost any of this is because something happened to the car. Either I'm stuck, or the car broke down, or something like this. It has happened. And so what are the kinds of things that would have the highest impact, the highest value to enable me to get the car back on the road? Because if I can get the car back on the road, I'm probably not going to need all this stuff. And so for that, I'm looking at tools. I know this is a terrible mess here. If you've got any solutions on how I can organize my tools and yet be in a compact bag, please leave a comment, because I know I need a intervention here. This is bad. So I'm still trying to find a good system for organization, but I've got them here if I need them, and to be able to work on the car and do stuff. Not that I'm a professional mechanic, but I'm fairly handy, and I can do a good bit with the car. And so having some tools on hand, it helps also not only for the car, but you'd be surprised how many times I use these tools for other things, like, working on stuff on somebody's house or any number of things. Just got to have tools around. Jumper cables for jumping your car if your battery's dead, or more likely, what I usually end up using it for is jumping somebody else's car if their battery is dead. And this is another item that can be really handy. This is a little air compressor pump, battery operated, and hook it up to the tire. You can fill the tire up with air, and that is super, super handy. The battery lasts a surprisingly long time. Now, this is an older unit. Nowadays, there's a lot of these out there that also have a jump start function for jump starting your car, and that's what I would actually like to get into at some point in time. Is a model. They are a little bit bigger, but they're not way bigger than this, and it'll pump your tire up and jumpstart your car, which is really cool because this only works if there's somebody else around to jump you. And if there isn't anybody else around to jump you, then having a jump starter like that would be really, really helpful for getting you going. Another thing, oh yeah, tires, thank you. That's a good item to bring up, is checking your spare tire. Is the pressure up on it? Because a lot of folks don't check on their spare tire for years, and then when they need it, the pressure is drained out and it does them no good. So spare tire, jack, and lug nut wrench, because that's one of the most likely car repairs, if you want to call it that are likely to take you off the road, is a flat tire. And yes, this could pump you up and buy you some time to get a few more miles down the road, but if it's a bad leak, this isn't going to cut it, and you're not even going to make it to town. So those are some items for the car, for keeping the car going. Anything else you can think of, if I'm in the truck, there may be some special, it's an old truck, and so there may be some special things where I'm having some issues with this or that, and I might have some special tools or parts in there because I know that that particular issue is about to rear its head in the truck, and I need to be prepared for that. So whatever you think you might need for your car to keep it going, tuck that in. If you've had kids, it's hard to live without wipes post-kids. How did we live without them before? I don't know, but I don't know that we'll ever live without them again. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh yes, when we have a windstorm go through, sometimes it'll blow trees over the road. And if we want to be able to get out or back home, sometimes that's also happened where the wind whipped up while we were gone and we had to cut our way back in. I used to run around with a axe, single bit axe in the back of the car, and that's nice because it's really compact and it doesn't take up much space. But then after having to chop through a couple of full-size trees with the axe, that got kind of old. And I think it was around that time that we got the battery-powered chainsaw, and it was like, oh, this is a no-brainer, because now we have no gas fumes, no gas to go bad in the heat, no gas to drain out all over. It's great. And so it fits nicely in here, and this just makes it a breeze if you have to cut your way through some down trees or something like that. And highly recommend having a chainsaw on hand if you can. If you can't, then throw an axe in there and you'll get through it. It'll just take a little longer. And I also have a bag that I've started that I just put in the car that's got some miscellaneous stuff. The little Life Straw water filter I showed you. Like I mentioned, there's much better quality filters that I have, but I don't like leaving them in the car, so this I don't mind. Duct tape, the handyman's secret weapon, you gotta have it. A manual compass. These are kind of like survival. Some of these are tending towards survival type items. Yes, your phone has a compass, but What if your battery dies, your phone breaks, whatever? It's good to have a mechanical compass, some radios in case you have to split up, communications if you're a ham radio operator, having a 2-meter rig would be really handy, or you could have a CB. I would like to put a CB in our car eventually. I know I need a new antenna. These are some old radios, but they still work fine. Having a good survival knife is really important in a survival situation. This is a good full tang, really strong, handy knife. And this is my big one for a real survival situation where I need to build a shelter, cut down trees, all kinds of things. This is an amazing knife, tough as nails, or tougher than nails. This is the kind of thing that they stamp nails, or that they stamp other knife blades out with, this steel. Parachute cord, 550-pound parachute cord is indispensable for who knows what. And a way to start a fire. This is a ferro stick, kind of like a flint and steel, and you can start fires with that. Good to learn how to start a fire with flint and steel, because you've got, in something like this, I think it's like 1,000,000 strikes or something like that. And there's some tinder in the handle, but you can make your own natural tinder, or my favorite is out of cotton balls that I've soaked in Vaseline and then squeezed the excess out. That's really awesome to start with flint and steel. So those are just some survival things. Now, one thing that I want to mention is that this is very much a living process. I want to say a living document, except this isn't a document. This is constantly changing what we have in the car based upon the seasons, based upon, even from week to week, what we're doing. All sorts of different factors play into this. And so we try and not get stuck into having, this exact setup. And so if you were to ride with us in our car in a couple of weeks, it would probably look different, what we have in the car, because it's just always changing. But the idea is to think about what you would want to have in the car if you couldn't get home, if you were stuck in the car for a couple days. What would I need to have to stay alive and to function and to hopefully get back on the road and get back home? What would it take? We're thinking about doing a series on similar topics like bug out bags and bug out plans for those that maybe aren't in an ideal location and want to make preparations for getting from point A to point B during a crisis or something like that. So if that sounds like it'd be useful to you, let us know in the comments, because we have some plans for that. And hope you have a great week. Meantime, we'll see you next time. Bye.